Entered the year in the church, and it ended in Matthew with a story about apocalypse. Now we have the beginning of the church year, and the Gospel of Mark in our reading today starts with apocalypse again. Happy New Year. This 3-year cycle that we have in the church today starts a whole year in the Gospel of Mark. Now, we won't be hearing it every Sunday. But it's the theme of the year. John takes a turn in parts of Advent and Lent. Luke's version of the Christmas story gets its time because Luke is the gospel that tells the story and the full story of Jesus' birth from Mary's point of view. And for Christmas, we use that one. But for most of this year, we will be looking at the Gospel of Mark. Mark is the first of the 4 books we call the Gospels that we believe was written down and shared. It's also the shortest. All 4 Gospels tell us something about who Jesus is. Sometimes they share the same stories, sometimes they add parts that nobody else talks about. Mark jumps right in. He just barrels into the story of Jesus, and he tells us exactly what he believes. He is the one that calls it the gospel, the good news about Jesus the Messiah. There's no question about that part for him. And not only is Mark the shortest gospel, but he just doesn't ever waste a word on anything. You hear words in Mark like immediately and directly all the time. There's a sense of urgency in this gospel from the first chapter and verse. That's why messages like today's, to stay awake and look for the coming of Christ, shouldn't be a surprise. You'll be hearing those messages from Mark for the entire year. Most of the gospel writers, including Mark, were convinced that Jesus would be back very soon. If anybody had told them, there's going to be people, first, your words will be written down, not just told among people. But there's going to be people almost 2,000 years from now who will still be reading your words and still be here on this earth in the kind of earth that you have here. And Jesus won't have come back yet. They would have been stunned. They really thought that before their generation passed away, Jesus would be back. And even though Jesus told them in this reading and all the time afterwards that, hey, even I don't know when that end is going to come, they still were waiting for it and believing it in their lifetime. They were pretty sure that they would still be in their earthly bodies when Jesus coming back happened. So, how many of you give any thought to the return of Jesus? Do you wake up and think this could be the day? Anybody say, oh yeah, I think about that all the time? I have to admit that I don't start out most days that way. I mean, there have been some days in my life where there were enough challenges and enough sorrows that I thought I certainly wouldn't complain if it happened today or soon, because that world is going to be far better than the one that sometimes we find ourselves in. But, I suspect for the most part, we treat Christ coming back the way we might, knowing that we might be getting an important guest who hasn't set a date for their arrival, or for a school exam or a work assignment that we know is maybe 6 months away. And so we're sort of planning for it, but all of a sudden that 6 months comes, and oops, have we done everything we were supposed to do each and every day for it? Usually it happens and we still haven't done enough. I was at the dentist earlier this week, and the receptionist who was checking me in was remarking that here it was one of the last days of November. And she actually whispered, and Friday is December. And I kind of looked at her funny. She said, they won't let me say that out loud because they all panic otherwise. So I have to whisper it to people. And it's just like, wow, that's where we have gotten. The time comes that quickly. We wait for that important coming, and yet we don't. Yesterday, I was in Trader Joe's, and one of the clerks was talking to a little boy who looked about 3. He looked about the age of my grandson. And she was talking to this little boy, and she said, "Is someone going to be visiting your house soon?" Because they were looking at a row of things that looked like presents. "Are you going to be bringing, are people going to come visit you?" And he kind of, "Grandma's coming." And she said, "No, is there anybody with a white beard and who's a jolly old man going to come visit you?" And his little face brightened up, and he said, "Yeah, Grandpa." She never could get Santa Claus out of this kid. It was hilarious because, she was thinking, oh, this is this big waiting and all that, and his big thing, Grandpa's coming. He didn't care about this other man with a red suit. His excitement was that Grandpa's coming. And I hope that ours can be not that the other jolly man with the red beard, with the red suit is coming, but that Christ is coming. Advent is kind of like that. We talk about waiting and yearning. It's the fresh new start of a church year, a clean slate, except that it isn't exactly. I mean, we know that Jesus has already come. He has begun the work of redeeming everything. And I mean everything, not just Christians, not even just people, but everything in creation. And we remind ourselves with Advent that he's coming back. And when he does, it won't be as a tiny, helpless babe to start the job of redemption. It will be as a Savior to finish the job. Advent is about living in that both and kind of place that we find ourselves. Jesus has already come and redeemed us with his life and death and resurrection. But still we wait for him to come with that final bringing in of the kingdom. And while we wait, we are broken, imperfect people in a broken and imperfect world. It isn't the world that God originally created and envisions for creation. God delights in all creation and all the created. But as the prophet Isaiah said in this morning's readings, "But you, God, were angry and we sinned. Because you hid yourself, we transgressed." Without God's intervention, we mess up. We do the things we shouldn't, and we don't do the things we should. Yet God remains faithful. That is God's amazing gift to us. Our theme for Advent this year is the peaceable kingdom. It's a great example of this both and place that we live in. The world around us is not the world the way God created it, but we can imagine what it would look like and what it will look like in God's version. The Bible describes it in the 11th chapter of Isaiah, in the passage that inspired American artist Edward Hicks to paint it many times. We have some of our weeks in Advent pictures from Hicks himself, which he painted 62 times, according to art historians, some version of the peaceable kingdom. And the words from Isaiah are, "The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox." It's a beautiful image, and one we can long for, knowing that it isn't what we see in the world around us. Hicks was a Quaker, born in Pennsylvania in 1680. During his lifetime, he was known more as a preacher than an artist. He spent most of his adult life earning a living as a painter of business signs, carriages, and decorative painting on buildings, while practicing as a preacher traveling to various Quaker meetings. For a very short time in his life, he gave up decorative painting to try his hand at farming, which was seen as a more suitable job for a Quaker preacher. However, he was not any good at farming, and he had a wife and 5 children to support. So when friends who were part of the Quaker movement suggested that he go back to the decorative painting, he was very happy to do so. Most of his art painting, his artworks, were some form of the peaceable kingdom, and he didn't do those for money. He rather gave them away to family and to friends. Sometimes he worked the image of Quaker leader William Penn into a corner of the paintings, as Penn's peacemaking with the Native Americans was another way that Hicks saw God's kingdom working in the world. During the later parts of his life, Hicks used art as his ministry instead of preaching, as it became clear to him that people were just not able to stay in God's perfect peace, and in fact seemed to choose disharmony with their neighbor more than peace. You can see a progression in Hicks' work from the earlier versions of the peaceable kingdom to the later ones. In the earlier ones, an infant Jesus is usually seen patting the head of a lion or a leopard. In the later ones, it looks more like he's holding the beast by the scruff of the neck to restrain it from its violent nature into the peace that God wants for it. Hicks may have lost faith in man's ability to keep that peace, but he never lost his faith in God. His hope remained in Jesus, and he believed always that the kingdom would come in God's good time. It's not a bad kind of hope to have, and one that we can focus on in the light of this first candle, which is the hope candle. So everything that we do in Advent, we do in hope first, that God will sort out the world the way it's supposed to be. While we're waiting in that hope, we can do things to stay awake, as the gospel says. Today's exercise in wakefulness is fairly simple. We're getting gifts ready to send to Houston, to our friends at Iglesia Príncipe de Paz, Prince of Peace. Pastor Adriana and her church are looking forward to giving gifts to lots of families and giving them a better Christmas than they could have without help from their church, our church, and others. Families who have lost their homes and most of what's in them and probably don't have any insurance to replace any of it. Most are still waiting for help that FEMA may give them, but that help has to be resolved before any other major help in rebuilding will be able to come. So right now they are still in that place of hope and waiting as well. What we can offer them is enough to help with a very small Christmas gift for most of the kids involved. Karen Ingram and Mary Lee Blair have helped put all this together, and we get to pick out angels and buy gift cards and write messages in the cards. Thank you for what you may have already done out there. You probably walked past the tables, or maybe you stopped at one of the tables as you came in. And hopefully when we give you time between the services, you will have even more time to go out and write a message to one of our friends at Prince of Peace or one of their friends in the neighborhood, and to share our peace and our hope with them. Thank you for what you may have already done. Thank you for what you're going to do. It's a very small thing toward making a peaceable kingdom. And maybe, as flawed but redeemed human beings, that's the best we can do. Amen.